So I would be interested to know who your favorite character of Final Fantasy X is. Let me know in the comments section down below, because in today's video we're going to be going over my tier list of the characters of Final Fantasy X. But there are a few rules I would like to go over so you know what to expect in today's tier list. This is based on my latest playthrough of Final Fantasy X, where I went through the game and got the Platinum Trophy for the Platinum series. Please watch that video, I would very much appreciate that. Also, we are not just looking at combat capabilities, we're looking at the character, what they bring to the story and their characteristics throughout the game, just to shake things up just that little bit. So whether they may be a S tier in combat, it might be brought all the way down because of what they brought to the story, or vice versa. I just like to shake things up, but they are the basis of this video. So with that all being said, what is up guys, Jen here, hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to the channel. Got you covered with timestamps down below in the description, so if you want to skip to a certain character and see where they rank, feel free to do so, but don't just skip to the end of the video and be like, oh, I don't agree with this, when you don't know the context of where that character is. Feel free to do that, but just don't throw things in the comment section below where you don't know why. All I ask is for you to hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel. So let's get straight into it. Let's change scenes and get straight into this tier list. Got this order in appearance, or where they can't come into the game, just to make things a little bit easier. And Seymour is also there because technically he is playable, and it gives us an extra character to kind of throw around and talk about. So let's start off with the protagonist of Final Fantasy X, Tidus, or to some people, Tidus. I'm a Tidus guy. So, what does he bring to the table? Let's talk about combat first. He is someone that we're probably going to be using all of the game. I certainly did in this latest playthrough. With the thing with Final Fantasy X is that they can all learn each other's abilities eventually, but it's going to be more based on what they bring in terms of overdrive. And you know what? As frustrating as his overdrive is to activate, because my hand-eye coordination is pretty poor, when it comes to Blitz Ace, it certainly helped out, especially when I was breaking damage limits and everything else in between. So combat abilities, he has some good things. And if we look at him of what he starts with, even though everyone else can get that eventually, he has those abilities that really help out at the beginning of the game. But in terms of story, where does that bring us? He is the main character. He is the crux of Final Fantasy X. We are in his shoes throughout this game. We are feeling what he is feeling. Everything is new to us as it is new to him. And the story he has with Yuna throughout, especially back in my teens, was very emotional, and I guess I didn't really feel the emotion this time around until the ending, and I really do like Tidus as a character, so I'm going to be very biased and throw Tidus straight in to S tier. So moving on to Auron, we are introduced to him very early on in the game, then he disappears and then he returns. So what does he bring into the table when it comes to combat abilities? So let's look what it is from the beginning. He can pierce the hard-shelled enemies. He also brings the break abilities to the game. Obviously, again, they can all be learnt by other characters, but we'll look at just certain things as we're going through. His overdrives you can learn throughout the game, whether it's collecting Jet Spheres or certain story beats of the game, and these again are very powerful. They are very OP, as some people may say, especially late game, again breaking the damage limit. But I didn't use him too much when it came to my end game, and when it comes to his story, it really doesn't come to fruition until towards the end of the game, where we found out that he's unsent, and we really want to look more into his backstory of Braska and Jekt. So for all those reasons being said, I think Auron is pretty safe in, he's got quite the redemption arc. He's got that send-off at the end of the game, which is pretty epic, and he isn't sloppy during the battle. So I think A is a good bet for Auron. So moving on to Wakka. Wakka Wakka Wakka. He handles flying enemies quite easily at the start of the game for us, and he does bring some nice status element abilities to the table that really help us out at the beginning of battle. But as time goes on, again, everybody learns everything, so we've got to look at his overdrives. And I think there's one overdrive in particular that we're all going to agree on, and that's attack reels. Really brings a lot to the table, especially when you're farming for that platinum. You want to be running through these enemies rather fast, so someone that can dish out a lot of damage, and Wakka is that person, and he was a considerable help on this run for Final Fantasy X. Now, in terms of story, Wakka's kind of like a bit like this to me, a bit of a wave, because he really kind of shows Tidus around the game as we start off in Besaid, and he really is this nice character, but he has a hatred for the Elbed and Machina, and it's really nice to see that character development, especially when Rikku is thrown into the fray. He finds out that they're Elbed, and that Yuna's the cousin of Rikku, and Sid is her uncle, and all of this, and just kind of realizes that the whole Yevon thing just isn't what it is. And it's really interesting to see that kind of dynamic work throughout the game. It's very interesting. And not only that, his relationship with Lulu, of which, you know, we know where that goes in Final Fantasy X too, but the whole Chappu situation as well has a lot to it. And I think Wakka's, without being like using a pun of the Blitzball, but Wakka is well rounded throughout in combat and story, and I think he is an easy S, and I'm going to put him right behind Tidus here because I truly feel he brings a lot to the table. Now we're talking to the other half of the love story. We're talking about the other half of the story, should I say, and that is Yuna, our summoner of the game. She introduces us to summons and how they work in Final Fantasy X. We can't use them with any other character, so with that really kind of boosts her up straight off the bat. Not only that, it's the access of abilities that she has. So she is our white mage. Again, everybody learns abilities, and I'm going to make that a fact. I'm going to keep bringing that up because I feel like that might be a comment when I'm going through abilities. I'm looking at how they help me out during the beginning of the game and how they carried it throughout. So she is our white mage, and these battles can get quite intense. You're losing HP. She's going to be the one that heals them to start off. So, and I use I think it probably should be mentioned that I use the standard sphere grid as well, because a lot of people maybe have been using the expert sphere grid watching this video, and that might not apply to them. So that's that being said as well. So summons is the main thing I want to talk about. It's really nice to use the summons, especially back in the day. This time around, didn't use them too much, but there were a few that really helped out. Anima is definitely one that helped out considerably. Another one at certain situations and kind of getting through things a little bit faster was Yojimbo, for reasons that we all know. As long as we've got deep pockets, we know that we're going to have a good time with Final Fantasy X. So that instantly, in my eyes, puts her up in S, just because of how she helped out the progression of my journey for Final Fantasy X. Now, when it comes to a story, obviously it's intertwined with Tidus and the way that all works. And, you know, Yuna is an alright character. I don't think she is deserving of S when we bring her story into it. Her character development is... I don't see much. She does open up a lot. I feel like she gets more character development in X too, for reasons, again, that we all know. But throughout Final Fantasy X, I think she is a pretty strong A character. She's pretty strong in the A character. So now we're going to look at Lulu, our black mage of the party. She gives us access to black magic and helps out with certain enemies at the beginning of the game. And again, I'll mention, yes, I know every character can learn that at the end of the day, but we're going to be going through the progression of what she brings. When it comes to overdrives, her overdrive's pretty weak. I don't like spinning those analog sticks whatsoever. And what else does she bring to the table? Again, it's just black magic. It helps us out considerably during certain phases of the game, especially against the elementals and the flans. Apart from that, I've not really used her in my main party whatsoever. And when it comes to terms of story, I think Lulu is probably the most flat of them all. The only bit we get is as we're going to where Yojimbo is found, and she talks about her past summoner that she was guardian for, her and Wakka. And that's about it. So she's rather weak in my eyes, and I'm going to put her, she's not completely weak, she's not completely flat. I think, you know what, I think she might be. Yeah, I'm going to put her in D. She really didn't bring, in this playthrough, anything to the table in terms of story and in terms of gameplay. So let's move on to the blue mage of the party, and that's Kimahri. And you all know how I feel with blue mages if you are regular viewers of the channel. I love blue mages. I love collecting blue magic. Again, we do that in here in Final Fantasy X, but it's much like Final Fantasy VIII to where you can only use it when you've got your overdrive. So unless you're filling up that overdrive, you're not going to see those abilities. And some of them are pretty nice. They really do help out at certain points. And another thing that he can do is that he has the Nova ability that you get right at the end. It's probably going to be the last one that you get. But that's pretty OP. I didn't really use him in my party whatsoever. I wish I did. I wish there was more utility from Kimahri. It's kind of like the middle ground character, especially when it comes to the standard sphere grid. He can go down anybody's route. I took him down Wakka's. In terms of story, again, very mute, very quiet until we get to know him a bit. He does have a good story arc when it comes to Mount Gazaza and just the history of his horn being broken and just how he was treated and just finishing off that arc. But apart from that, that's it. And I do think Kimahri is one of the weaker characters. We do get the weird smiling scene, I guess, which did make me laugh, and it made me laugh again for this playthrough. But I don't know. I think here he's also going to be a D for me. So that brings us on to Rikku. I really like Rikku. Riku's our thief. And what does she bring in to the table? We obviously meet her at the beginning of the game. We learn how to steal, and we can learn how to kind of mix and use. Mix, very powerful. What is it? Hyper Mighty G was a lot of help throughout the game. There were also one that was, what was the one I used against Yuna for my attacks to do 9999 damage? I can't remember at the top of my head, but it was quite OP. Because it got me through a fight very easily, because I was a little bit weaker going into that fight and I didn't really want to go back and grind, and I made that item and it helped out. So I think you can use something 4 times. I think one of the items, like a water gem, but it does 999 damage, so it kind of rinses her HP very fast. And again, she's a fast character also. I used her a lot for stealing, for mugging, for mixing. She helped out a lot. In terms of story, I think she's an interesting character. We don't get to know much about her at the beginning because we don't get the unmasking until she is defeated in one of the things we defeat underwater, and she drowns, or she ends up on shore around the Moonfloat area. But then we find out that obviously she's Elbed, and the whole thing with Wakka that we mentioned previously, she's Yuna's cousin, and there's a reason she's very passionate, and that whole scene at home really hit home when she's like telling Tidus, whatever, that, you know, about what happens to summoners and why they're doing what they're doing, and it's a really good scene. I think Riku's a pretty strong S. I think she's stronger than Wakka, but not just strong. You know what? I think she might be the strongest here. I think she might be top for me. Yeah, I think she was. Really like using her in battle, and I really like her character. I don't find her annoying. I think that a few people might find her annoying. I didn't. 10-2 might be a different story, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So we're finishing off with our bad guy of Final Fantasy X, and we get to play with him just a little bit during the Operation Mayhem battle against one of the Sin Spawn monsters. And his utilities, he has powerful magic, and he has access to anima because of the story behind that. But I guess we're mostly ranking Seymour based on his story and the bad guy vibes that he brings to the table. Is he a good bad guy at the end of the day, stacking up against some of Final Fantasy's past bad guys? To be fair, I don't think he was the strongest, but he was certainly a strong character. He was annoying. He got under my skin at certain parts, and his kind of like motive to do everything was very kind of sick and twisted and what he wanted to do. But where does he rank amongst all these characters? I think probably belongs either A or B. I'm thinking B or bottom A. And I'm going to go with B. I think I'm going to go with B. That is my tier list based on my playthrough of Final Fantasy X that I did for the Platinum series, and based on not only combat abilities, but also the story and the characteristics of that character in Final Fantasy X. I think that is everything I want to say. I think that's what I'm going to roll with, and I'm interested to know if you agree. If you don't, let me know. Just consider where I've ranked them and why I've ranked them. I do like the discussions. So I guess there we have it. That is the tier list for Final Fantasy X. And again, I'm very interested to see if you agree or if you disagree. I'm really interested to hear opinions, and I suggest that you leave them all down there in the comment section below. I won't hold you any longer. I appreciate your time. Please subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified of that content, and again, get involved in that comment section below. I try my best to respond to all of them, and I'm always up for the conversation. Thank you for watching, and until next time, I'll catch you on the flip side.